I've got two news for you. The good one is that you're being born on a Star Wars planet. The bad one? Well, you're landing on a planet where your childhood might end before it even starts. In this video, we're diving into what it actually feels like to start your life on different Star Wars planets, going from the worst possible spawn point to okay, this isn't too painful, including some we didn't touch in the previous videos. So grab a snack, get comfy, and let the galaxy fade around you. And tell me where you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see where Star Wars fans are watching from across the galaxy. Now, let's begin. Nothing beats a Mustafar holiday, said absolutely no one in the history of the galaxy, ever. Being born here is like starting your life in a microwave that's actively trying to roast you. And I don't mean a metaphorical microwave. I mean the whole planet is basically bubbling pizza sauce with anger issues. And since we're ranking the worst planets to be born on, Mustafar pretty much volunteered to take first place without any competition. You know how normal newborns cry because the room is too cold? On Mustafar, you cry because your skin feels like it's being slow cooked the moment you open your eyes. Even the air is spicy, in a way that makes you understand why Vader was so cranky all the time. Let's start with the basics. Mustafar used to be a peaceful forest world owned by the ancient Redians. It had trees, water, a climate that didn't scream instant death. Then the planet got tugged into an unstable orbit between two gas giants, and nature basically went, yeah, I'm done here. The crust cracked, volcanoes erupted non-stop, and everything green got flash-fried into charcoal. You're born on the aftermath of the galaxy's worst barbecue, so imagine your first day of life. Your parents, if they're locals, are already sweating through 5 layers of heat-resistant clothing. You're this tiny little potato who basically got spawned on top of a lava lamp. And don't get me wrong, Mustafar does have settlements, mining outposts, even some industry, but they're built with the same attitude as people who live next to an active volcano on purpose. It's possible, sure, but you spend every day hoping the mountain doesn't sneeze molten rock in your general direction. The heat is only half the problem. The air quality on this planet is insane. You've got volcanic ash, toxic gas, and random fire tornadoes that show up uninvited, like that annoying cousin you wish you didn't have to see every holiday. Most babies grow up with toys and lullabies. On Mustafar, your first bedtime story is probably your parents telling you to avoid the lava rivers because they bite. And don't even get me started on the infrastructure. You know how on normal planets, hospitals have nice cool rooms, clean floors? Mustafar medical centers are built inside heat-insulated bunkers that constantly buzz because the cooling systems work harder than stormtroopers trying to hit a target. Your crib might actually be fireproof. It's because one wrong vent malfunction can turn your room into a sauna that could steam cook a Gamorrean. Let's talk daily life. By the time you can walk, your parents already gave you the classic Mustafarian safety briefing. Don't run near lava flows, don't stand too close to geysers, they explode. Don't touch anything glowing orange, it's not pretty, it's hot. Don't trust the ground, it shifts, cracks, and occasionally melts. Honestly, your childhood is basically one big game of the floor is lava, except the floor is actually lava. Now, Mustafar does have some wildlife, but calling it wildlife is generous. Most of it looks like it crawled out of a furnace. Fire-resistant insects, weird lizard things that like hanging out near lava rivers, and these flying creatures that survive off heat pockets. You probably grow up thinking it's totally normal that the local birds glow like furnace coils. One thing Mustafarians never get used to is the way the sky looks. Instead of calm blues or cute clouds, you get a mix of black smoke, glowing embers, and orange haze. The sunsets? Yeah, about those. Technically, Mustafar does have sunsets, but they look like someone spilled a volcano into the horizon. If you ever do see one, you're probably already indoors begging the AC unit not to quit on you. Let's talk about Mustafar's economy, because this is where the law kicks in hard. The planet is basically one giant factory, mining lava-based minerals, harvesting heat-resistant alloys, refining volcanic chemicals. That's the kind of work that keeps the place running. Also, Mustafar is famous for the Black Sun cults, ancient Force-sensitive groups that treated the planet like a spiritual oven. And speaking of Sith, Vader's castle. You grow up with that thing on the horizon, like the world's most depressing tourist attraction. It's basically the galaxy's biggest do not enter sign. Vader chose Mustafar as his home base because he's Vader. The man loves dramatic real estate. The castle is built above the exact spot where he got turned into a burnt chicken wing by Obi-Wan. Imagine being a child growing up here and seeing that massive black fortress every day, knowing the most terrifying guy in the galaxy uses your neighborhood as his personal meditation zone. School on Mustafar? Yeah, good luck with that. Most classrooms are built underground or inside cooling chambers. You're trying to study math while the ceiling shakes from volcanic activity. And when you complain about the heat, your teacher just says, "It's cooler today than usual." Now here's an interesting fact. Mustafar actually has weird beauty to it. The lava rivers glow like neon streams, the magma domes sparkle, and the whole planet has this intense, chaotic vibe that's kind of mesmerizing. You grow up thinking it's normal to see the ground crack open and pour out glowing orange soup. And Mustafarians? They're proud of that. It's like people who grow up in extreme climates. They develop this weird affection for the environment trying to kill them. But the thing about Mustafar is that it never gives you a break. Other planets have seasons. Mustafar has slightly less deadly and extra crispy. You can't step outside without gear. You can't live without cooling tech. You can't relax because the planet feels like it's rumbling under your feet every other hour. When you're a kid, you don't even notice how stressful it is until you visit a normal planet and realize life isn't supposed to feel like someone's holding a heat lamp over your soul. And here's where it gets funny. Mustafarians who travel off-world are always freezing, even on warm planets. You're born into so much heat that standing in 25 degrees Celsius feels like winter. You probably pack sweaters for Coruscant. Meanwhile, everyone else is sweating. And you're like, "This is fantastic, where's the fireplace?" So how long do you last on Mustafar? With a good family, good equipment, and a bit of luck, you survive. But it's hard, really hard. But let's be honest, being born here is one of the worst spawning points in the entire galaxy. You don't get nature, you don't get seasons, you don't get comfort. You get pressure, you get heat, and you get the constant reminder that the planet beneath you is one bad day away from throwing a tantrum. Still, Mustafarians are tough. They're stubborn, skilled, and loyal. When your entire childhood is a battle against molten rock, you learn some serious life lessons. Mostly don't stand near glowing things, but also resilience, focus, and a strong sense of community. So yeah, Mustafar, if you're born here, you're basically starting life on expert difficulty. The planet isn't evil, it's just unforgiving. But you know, if you can handle Mustafar, you can handle anything. And honestly, once you leave this place, every other world feels like a spa. On a normal list, this place would easily take first place. But let's be honest, calling Malachor habitable is generous. The galaxy practically gave up on this world a long time ago. If planets had paperwork, Malachor's file would be stamped "Don't bother" in big red letters. You don't come here to live. You come here to regret every decision that led you to land on this rock. Some planets are quiet, sure, but they still have a pulse. Malachor gives off a completely different vibe, like the air hasn't moved in years, and the rocks remember things they'd rather forget. The first thing you notice is how still everything is. The wind doesn't really blow, animals don't run around, and nothing casually grows. It's not a place where nature died. It's a place where nature packed its bags, sent a final message, and disconnected its holocom. And yet, underneath all that silence, you get this sense that the place is full. That dark side wound in the Force, that old energy that seeped into the ground after the ancient wars. Malachor was once a world full of temples, libraries, strange black stone corridors, echoes of chanting, and Sith teachings that made even the old masters nervous. This planet was a university for chaos, basically. A place where the Sith experimented, studied, and pushed their powers until they broke the entire environment. You probably know the story. The ancient battle that turned the world into glass. A super weapon that petrified thousands of warriors, mid-combat statues everywhere, frozen in their final moments, like some nightmare museum. Imagine walking around as a kid, if being born here even counts, and every direction you turn, you see people turned into charcoal statues. Not zombies, not ghosts, just frozen reminders that something went seriously wrong. You don't need bedtime stories here. The planet is one. The ground itself shows what happened. The surface is cracked, dry and dark, like someone tried to bake the entire planet and forgot to set a timer. Some areas look smooth and polished, as if the heat melted everything and let it cool into glassy fields. Other places are jagged and broken, like corners of ruined temples clawing their way out of the crust. You don't find grass, trees, or even proper soil. You find black stone, dust that sticks to your skin, and ridges that look like they were carved by fire. Walking around here feels like walking inside a memory that refuses to fade. And the funny thing is, even though the planet is destroyed, it still has personality. Malachor has that special kind of aura you only get from places that were forced into silence instead of choosing it. You ever walk into an abandoned building where everything is still standing, just covered in dust, and it almost feels like people left 5 minutes ago? That's Malachor. Except multiply that feeling by 1,000 and throw in the Force equivalent of leftover radiation. Let's talk day-to-day life, or whatever version of daily life exists on a planet without an actual population. If you're unlucky enough to be born here, let's imagine some small outpost or a family of archaeologists who made terrible career choices. Everything you do has this strange tension behind it. You don't wake up to birds or sunlight. The sky is almost always grey or pitch black. The clouds hide the stars so well that you forget it's a galaxy out there. You get used to a silence that's so constant, it becomes its own background noise. You grow up around architecture that looks like it was built for things that were much taller than you. You spend a lot of time inside these ruins. And believe me, you never truly relax inside a Sith temple. Even if nothing jumps out, even if the place is completely empty, every wall carries a story you don't want to read. When you finally leave this place, and trust me, if you grow up here, you do leave, the galaxy becomes a completely different experience. Fresh air feels unreal. Grass feels like cheating. Trees look like someone turned the saturation back on. Even a noisy spaceport feels peaceful, after years of listening to a silent planet breathe like some old beast that refuses to fully die. If there's a planet in Star Wars that feels like it should come with a pop-up message saying, "Are you sure you want to spawn here?" it's Korriban. Even the galaxy treats this place like that one abandoned basement nobody wants to enter, but everyone swears there's something cursed inside. And to be fair, they're not wrong. Korriban. It's dangerous because everything here feels older than civilization itself, and somehow still irritated you showed up. The first thing people always talk about is how empty it is. But that's not really the interesting part. The interesting part is why it's empty. This planet was once the home of the original Sith species, the red-skinned ones with a culture built entirely around power, rituals, hierarchies, and a level of pettiness that could cut through Durasteel. Their entire society was basically built around the question, who can scare the neighbours more? You don't grow up with green fields or cute animals running around. Your childhood involves endless sand valleys, giant stone heads staring at you like they're judging your life choices, and tombs the size of actual cities. Imagine being a kid and the biggest landmark in sight is a pyramid built specifically to intimidate someone 10,000 years ago. There are planets where the scenery inspires artists, Korriban inspires trust issues. But here's what really separates this place from every other bad spawn point. The history is everywhere. And it's not quiet about it. Every rock, every cliff, every old ruin carries some sort of memory of the Sith Empire. And not in a mystical, floating ghost way. It's more subtle, like how certain old buildings on Earth make you feel like you're being watched. Except here the building probably was used by a guy who could throw lightning at people when he got annoyed. So if you ever felt like the wind was whispering something creepy, there's a good chance it actually was. Now if you were born on Korriban during ancient Sith times, your daily life wouldn't be boring. Dangerous? Yes. Morally questionable? Also, yes, but not boring. Kids here weren't raised gently. They were raised like potential future warlords. Their version of school wasn't about learning the alphabet. It was more like, here's a training room, here's a practice blade, try not to lose any limbs. You wouldn't have typical childhood memories. The closest thing to a playground was probably some rocky canyon where young acolytes tried not to die during morning exercises. Even if you weren't force sensitive, Korriban society expected you to contribute in a way that strengthened their hierarchies. You might grow up helping maintain tombs, carrying supplies for rituals, or working for one of the Sith houses. And let's be honest, none of those jobs came with good healthcare. If a stone sarcophagus accidentally opened and something old and cranky inside muttered your name, your shift just got worse, that's all. What makes Korriban so strange culturally is that everything revolves around the dead, but not in a sad way, more like a weird admiration. The Sith treated their dead like celebrities. Important lords got entire landscapes dedicated to them. The Valley of the Dark Lords wasn't just a cemetery, it was their version of Hollywood Boulevard, except the stars were buried under 3 tons of stone and had a habit of leaving behind cursed relics. You grow up hearing stories about each tomb, and none of them end with, "and then he lived happily ever after." Living families still existed here throughout history, and they weren't all monsters. Some were scholars, record keepers, artisans who made ceremonial armor, or historians who tried to preserve the old knowledge, but their whole culture was built around power. So even something as simple as a disagreement at dinner could turn into a duel. Imagine being 10 years old and overhearing your parents argue about who insulted whose ancestors, knowing they might settle it with a blade instead of talking it out. Therapy wasn't exactly a thing here. Now, one thing Korriban did have was craftsmanship. Say what you want about the Sith. They knew how to build things that lasted. Their temples weren't flimsy. They were huge, sharp-edged monuments that screamed, "We used slaves and dark rituals to make this, and we want everyone to know." Growing up around that means your sense of scale is completely warped. When you leave the planet later in life and see a regular building, you're like, "That's it? That's the entire structure?" Let's talk food, because every planet's daily life feels more real. When you think about what people actually ate, Korriban isn't Tatooine level dry, but it's still mostly desert. Farming was difficult, so most food was imported or grown in small enclaves near underground water pockets. Meals were simple: grains, preserved meats, dried fruits, nothing fancy. But the Sith did enjoy ritual feasts. Imagine giant halls with torches, everyone wearing ceremonial robes, someone in the corner polishing a dagger they definitely weren't using for cooking. If you were a kid, you sat there trying not to make eye contact with anyone older, because you didn't want to volunteer in a ritual by accident. And speaking of rituals, those shaped a huge part of life, but not in a repetitive way. Each ritual had a different purpose. Some honoured ancestors, some strengthened alliances, some tested loyalty, and some were just excuses for Sith Lords to show off their abilities to remind everyone else exactly who ran the room. Kids grew up used to seeing weird glowing glyphs on walls and hearing adults argue about artifacts like they were discussing grocery lists. What's interesting is that despite all the intimidating architecture and angry history, Korriban wasn't a planet where every second of your life was horror. People had communities. They laughed, they traded, they raised families, they told stories around fire pits, they had music, deep, echoing drums and low chanting. To an outsider it might sound terrifying, but to locals it was just home. Even the shadows that moved in weird ways were normal if you lived here long enough. But let's be honest, Korriban was not a planet that rewarded weakness. The environment wasn't deadly, like Mustafar or Felucia, but the atmosphere of the culture kept everyone on edge. You couldn't afford to slack off. You couldn't afford to look unsure. Even as a kid, you felt the expectations. Every adult acted like life was a competition, with rules nobody bothered to write down. And if you managed to survive childhood, congratulations. Adulthood was even more complicated. When the old Sith Empire fell and Korriban became a graveyard of ruins, everything changed. The planet shifted from an active homeworld to a historical site with more ghosts than grocery stores. If you spawned here during this era, your life would be very different, quieter, but also lonelier. Archaeologists, looters, force cults, and occasional Jedi expeditions became your neighbours. And that's not exactly a stable community. Supply runs became your version of grocery shopping. You lived in small camps, moved carefully around ruins, and followed strict paths so you wouldn't fall into some forgotten ritual pit. Nights were cold and silent, except for the wind passing through massive tomb entrances like someone exhaling. Imagine being a teenager here, your entertainment, exploring ruins you absolutely weren't supposed to enter. Your education, whatever the researchers taught you. Your sense of danger, higher than a stormtrooper trying to hit a moving target. So yeah, Korriban is definitely not a planet anyone would recommend as a birthplace. Too much pressure during the ancient era, too much emptiness during the post-ruin era. But it's also fascinating. Every part of it shaped by history, power, and ambition. It's not a place where you die instantly. It's a place where you grow up with the weight of 1,000 years of conflict sitting quietly in the background. And the funny thing, most people who visit Korriban don't appreciate any of that. They see sand, ruins, scary statues, and leave. But someone who was born here, They understand the planet. They feel the connection between the landscape and the culture. They know which ruins are respected and which ones are avoided. They know which stones are decorative and which stones are doors that absolutely should not be opened. If you were born here, you wouldn't have an easy life, but you'd have a meaningful one. There's something real about growing up, surrounded by history, that didn't get polished or rewritten. It's raw, honest, intimidating, and strangely calming once you accept it. Not the best spawn point in the galaxy, far from it, but definitely one of the most unforgettable. Mandalore after the bombardment lands in 4th place on our list. If Mandalore before the Purge was like a proud warrior with a library of battle scars, the post-bombardment version is more like that warrior got hit by a meteor, a flamethrower, a trash compactor, and then someone said, "Yeah, let's finish the job, just to be sure." Today, when you picture Mandalore, you don't imagine a home world. You imagine a warning sign. Cities turned into geometric skeletons, metal melted into patterns that don't follow the rules of architecture anymore, and whole regions that look like someone tried to recreate modern art with explosives. But let's pull back for a moment, because if you only think of the destruction, you miss the interesting part. What life would actually look like if someone had to raise a kid here? Not the Mandalorians in armor who come to salvage Beskar, but an actual family trying to exist in this place. And honestly, that scenario is so absurd that it makes the whole analysis entertaining. The air on post-Purge Mandalore isn't hostile in the poison boiling out of the ground way. It's hostile in the you shouldn't be breathing this mix of dust and pulverized city. The atmosphere is full of microscopic debris floating around from ruined buildings, mines, and industrial zones. Imagine opening a window and having to brush off a layer of metallic powder every morning. Not snow, not ash. More like the weather forecast says. Today you're getting 30% chance of breathing in someone's former living room. Temperature swings are the other problem. Without the old environmental systems, parts of Mandalore bake during the day and freeze at night. Not to Mustafar extremes and not to Hoth extremes, more like your refrigerator broke, and now your whole apartment is going through mood swings. It's survivable, but only if you accept that survivable here means you will always be uncomfortable. Let's talk about the living situation. Post-bombardment, Mandalore doesn't have houses. It has holes in things that used to be buildings. Families would end up living inside whatever structure still has enough solid pieces to keep gravity from winning. Some hide in underground metro tunnels. Some repurpose abandoned Imperial bunkers. Some settle inside the old dome remnants like squatters, claiming territory in a metal cave. Your daily routine? Before breakfast, you have to check that nothing collapsed overnight. Imagine waking up and thinking, let me make sure the ceiling didn't decide to quit. Every door creaks like it's insulted that you still use it. Every hallway is dark even when it's daytime. And the only natural sunlight you get is whatever slips through cracks in the half-melted walls. Kids wouldn't play outside because there is no outside, just open ground full of metal shards, broken vehicles, and the occasional droid head staring at you like it remembers something traumatic. And the funny part? Mandalore is wrecked, but the planet is littered with old tech. That means your wildlife is not animals, it's malfunctioning machines. Post-Purge Mandalore isn't empty of meaning. If anything, it carries too much meaning. Imagine growing up surrounded by symbols that you don't fully understand yet. Shattered helmets, rusted clan markings, faded murals, broken Beskar armor plates half buried in the dirt. Every step you take is on top of history. You touch the wall of a collapsed building and realize it once held 100 families during the Clone Wars. You find a cracked visor and wonder whether its owner stood against the Empire or died trying. Mandalorians who come back to reclaim resources treat the planet like a cemetery and a workshop at the same time. There's pride, sorrow, anger, respect, all mixed into the loudest silence you'll ever hear. And a kid living here grows up faster than usual, because even though the planet doesn't have teachers, the ruins themselves teach you things nobody else can. Nobody farms on post-Purge Mandalore. The ground is charred, unstable, and full of heavy metals. If you tried planting a carrot, it would probably come out as a wrench, so families rely on imported ration packs, scavenged storage crates, old sealed pantries from Imperial bases, whatever Mandalorian clans bring as offerings when they visit. Food doesn't spoil fast because the whole environment is so dry, it could probably mummify soup water. Same problem. Natural sources are rare, so you either melt ice from underground structures, filter stored reserves, or hope an old purifier unit still works. Living in a half-dead world shapes how people talk, joke, and think. Conversations here don't sound like small talk. The humour turns dry, the patience grows, the respect for history gets stronger, and because Mandalorians are culturally wired for survival, even families stuck on this ruined world build a sense of identity around resilience. Everyone knows about the Purge, the Night of 1,000 Tears, and the Empire's involvement. But the part that rarely gets talked about is what Mandalorians discovered after the devastation: dormant vaults. The biggest twist? A child raised here wouldn't feel unlucky. They'd feel connected. Connected to the story, connected to the armor. Because Mandalore is the kind of place that forces you to learn about your heritage, even if you're not trying. You wake up surrounded by reminders of who lived here, what they stood for, and why the galaxy feared them and respected them at the same time. And when Mandalorians from other systems visit, they treat you like someone who grew up in the heart of the old ways. Because surviving here, even in a small settlement, takes respect and discipline. Post-bombardment Mandalore isn't a homeworld, it's a reminder. Life here isn't peaceful, but it's grounded. People don't worry about politics, markets, or traffic jams. It's simple, it's raw, it's tough. And yet it has a strange sense of purpose that makes the place feel alive again, even if the surface looks dead. If you had to grow up here, you'd end up with sharp instincts, calm nerves, and a weird habit of tapping walls to check stability before walking under them. And that's the charm of post-Purge Mandalore. A world that shouldn't function, yet somehow does. Carried entirely by the stubbornness of the people who refuse to let their heritage disappear. If Mustafar is a microwave, then Kessel is the galaxy's version of an unwashed worksite where the air itself feels like a hazard. Being born here, it's basically the Star Wars equivalent of spawning inside a factory run by people who don't believe in safety regulations. On Kessel, your first breath is basically a slap to the face. There's dust in the air that shouldn't exist outside of a spice processing plant, and the sky has that pale yellow tint that makes you wonder if the sun is sick. Even the wind smells like bad decisions. People imagine Kessel as the planet with the mines, but living here full-time is a completely different experience. The place is loud, industrial, messy, and constantly shaking, because something down below is always being drilled, blasted, or transported. Being born here means your lullaby is the rhythmic rumble of mining equipment, mixed with the occasional alarm telling everyone to evacuate. The environment never shuts up. It's a planet that feels busy even at night. Machinery, conveyor belts, air scrubbers, shuttle departures, everything makes noise. Even if you grow up used to it, you never fully relax. You learn to sleep through the kind of ambient industrial chaos that would send someone from a peaceful planet into a nervous breakdown. Now, let's talk about the air, because it's famously bad. The closer you are to the mines, the more you breathe in traces of raw spice. And raw spice is not cute. It's not glitter, it's not sugar, it's not cinnamon dust. It's the kind of substance that makes grown adults hallucinate if they inhale too much of it. So imagine being a kid here, playing outside, kicking rocks around, and your parents yelling at you because that dust on your boots is worth more than our house, and also might ruin your lungs. And while we're here, the whole Kessel Run myth makes the planet sound adventurous and cool, but living here feels nothing like a Han Solo highlight reel. It's not exciting. It's industrial survival mode. The Kessel Run is legendary because the planet is surrounded by black holes, gravity wells, and cosmic nonsense that eats ships alive. People who live here, they deal with the ground-level version of that, an unstable planet that's constantly shaking because the mines go too deep. The buildings are tall, metallic, and constantly patched together with more metal. Everything looks temporary, even the structures that have been standing there for 50 years. There are no cute parks or green spaces. If someone tries to plant a tree here, the tree would probably file a complaint and leave. Your idea of fun as a kid isn't running around in a field. It's finding a quiet spot where the noise isn't so loud, it vibrates your teeth. Some kids collect tiny spice crystals that fall out of transport containers, even though their parents yell at them for it, because if that dissolves in your mouth, it's going to send you on the galaxy's shortest field trip. School on Kessel is interesting. Most subjects are taught with a very clear goal: don't fall into a mining hole when you grow up. Kids learn geology before basic arts. You learn what different types of spice look like, so you don't touch the wrong one. And your school trips. Other planets go to museums or nature reserves. Kessel kids visit a refinery and learn which parts of the machinery you should absolutely never stand next to unless you want to join the galaxy's shortest apprenticeship program. Even if your family doesn't work in the mines, you still grow up knowing how to identify when a conveyor's starting to break down or when an extractor needs recalibration. It's part of the culture, you can't avoid it. Let's talk about security, because Kessel has a weird relationship with crime and danger. Everyone knows the planet used to run slave labor under Imperial rule. Almost every building here has a story behind it, and not a happy one. People don't talk about it much, but the atmosphere itself feels heavy with old memories. After the Empire fell, the planet tried to reform everything. New management, new industry rules, new attempts to clean up the reputation. But even if the slavery ended, the economic reality didn't magically improve. Most people living here still deal with low income, dangerous jobs, and an environment that constantly reminds them of the past. Even relationships on Kessel have this industrial vibe. Families bond over fixing things. You don't hear, "Let's go for a picnic." You hear, "Can you hand me that wrench?" Hanging out with friends sometimes means sitting on shipping crates and watching freighters take off. It's not glamorous, but it's the culture. Let's talk about what it means to actually leave Kessel. Most kids grow up telling themselves they'll get out someday. They hear about planets with forests and lakes and clear skies. And when someone finally does manage to leave, they usually talk about how overwhelming it is to breathe clean air for the first time. It's like your lungs suddenly realize what they were missing. Some people straight up get emotional over it. Imagine living your whole life breathing through filters, and then one day taking a full deep breath without coughing. Let's drop in some lore, because Kessel is more important to the galaxy than people think. The spice mines are ancient. People have been pulling valuable material out of this planet long before the Republic existed. Old civilizations used Kessel's spice to trade with distant worlds, and some of those trade routes still exist thousands of years later. The planet is connected to the Maw, that cluster of black holes near Kessel. It's one of the most dangerous regions in the galaxy. Navigating near it takes insane piloting skill, which adds a weird sense of pride to the planet's culture. If someone grows up here and becomes a pilot, they wear that badge with honor. The spice itself isn't always drugs. Kessel produces medical spice, navigational spice, and industrial chemicals that the galaxy literally depends on. It's not all shady smuggling operations. A lot of it is essential material for hospitals and starship navigation systems. Back to the experience of being born here. The social structure is very layered. Some families work for big corporate contractors and live in slightly nicer districts. Others live closer to the industrial zone and deal with more dust, more noise, more everything. But everyone shares one thing. Life here revolves around the mines. Birthdays, holidays, celebrations, all of them are shaped by work schedules. Dad can't make it, they're opening a new tunnel. Mom's late, there was a pressure alert in her sector. It's normal. Food on Kessel is another adventure. You don't get fresh fruit or vegetables unless someone imports them, and they're expensive. Most meals are made from long-lasting ration ingredients mixed with whatever seasonings people manage to barter. But Kessel cooks are creative. They find ways to turn simple ingredients into comfort food. Thick stews, hot breads, spiced drinks, strong flavors that cut through the dusty air. And yet, for all its problems, Kessel has something. Mustafar doesn't. A sense of possibility. You can work your way up here. You can move off-world. You can change your future. The planet might be rough, but it isn't hopeless. That's why being born on Kessel isn't the worst start in the galaxy, but it's definitely near the bottom. You're not dealing with lava rivers, but you're dealing with everything else. Toxic dust, industrial chaos, dangerous work, and a history that weighs on everyone. Growing up here makes you tough. You learn responsibility early. You learn to read danger signs. You learn to fix things with your hands. And you definitely learn how to appreciate fresh air the first time you visit any planet that isn't Kessel. So taking the 6th place on our Please Don't Spawn Me Here list, we've got Dathomir. If Mustafar is the planet that tries to cook you, and Kessel is the planet that tries to mine you, Dathomir is the planet that takes one look at you and goes, "Ah yes, a snack." Being born here isn't just unlucky, It's the galaxy's way of telling you that your respawn timer is going to work overtime. You know how some kids grow up with stuffed animals? On Dathomir, the stuffed animals grow up with you and then try to eat you 10 minutes later. The first thing you notice about Dathomir is how wrong everything looks. Every planet has some weirdness, but Dathomir doesn't even try to pretend it's normal. The sky has this constant red hue that makes the whole place look like someone forgot to turn off the Sith mood lighting. The forests are twisted, the air feels heavy, and the wildlife sounds like it's arguing over who gets to chew on your leg first. Even if you're just a newborn, there's this natural pressure in the air, like the planet itself is judging you. And keep in mind, this is the home of the Night Sisters and the Night Brothers. You're not growing up on a planet with a single culture, you're growing up in the middle of one of the most intense societies in Star Wars. The Night Sisters aren't your typical villagers, they're Force-sensitive witches who bend nature, cast illusions, raise the dead for fun, and treat dark magic like it's a warm cup of tea. This is the environment you're born into. Forget lullabies. You might fall asleep to someone chanting over a cauldron. You probably grow up in a settlement made from stone and bone, surrounded by forests that feel alive in a very literal way. The Night Sisters control a lot of what happens here. Their magic seeps into the ground, into the creatures, even into the plants. That's why everything looks like it's halfway between alive and haunted. The roots curl in strange patterns, glowing fungi pulse, softly at night, and you never really know if the trees are moving because of the wind or because they felt like changing position. Your childhood is split depending on where you end up. If you're born among the Night Brothers, congratulations. Your future involves training, fighting, and hoping. You don't get picked for something that sounds like a ritual, but feels like a bad idea. Night Brothers grow up tough because they don't have another option. They're raised to be warriors, hunters, and potential recruits for whatever the Night Sisters feel like doing that day. You might spend your early years learning how to handle a spear, how to track creatures bigger than the hut you live in, and how to avoid angering anyone who can turn you into a frog, purely for entertainment. If you're born in a Night Sister clan, life is different, but not easier. You're surrounded by magic from day one. Your relatives don't cook with a stove, they cook with green mist that looks like someone trapped a ghost in a pot. The Night Sisters teach their daughters early, control the power, or get swallowed by it. You learn discipline, rituals, how to manipulate the natural energy around you, and how to stay calm when something glows in the dark behind you. It's not a normal childhood. You don't have toys, you have artifacts, and some of them whisper if you hold them long enough. Daily life here is wild because the environment doesn't give you any mercy. The planet's creatures are famous for being terrifying, and that's before they get enchanted. Rankers roam free like oversized house pets that never got trained properly. Most planets have cattle or small animals. Dathomir has creatures that could use your house as a footrest. When local kids talk about going outside, what they really mean is going outside with 3 adults, a weapon, and a prayer. The thing is, people born here develop instincts most other kids never need. You learn early how to move quietly, how to listen for the low growl of something hiding in the bushes, and how to tell the difference between a safe path and this thing eats people now. Even Night Brothers who grow up tough still respect the land. One wrong turn, one wrong noise, one moment of distraction. That's all it takes. The cool part is, Dathomir actually has a deeper history than most people realise. Long before the Clone Wars, this world was tied to the ancient Ithorians, who terraformed parts of it. Before that, the Quar built great gates here, the ancestors of the Infinity Gate technology. This planet has old energy, ancient scars, and layers of history that make it almost feel like it remembers everything that happened on it. And none of it was peaceful. You don't have large cities here. There are no bright lights, skyscrapers, or calm districts where you can just chill on a bench and people watch. Even the Night Sisters don't live comfortably. Their structures are simple, because luxury does not survive on Dathomir. If it's not practical, it melts, breaks, or gets ripped apart by wildlife that didn't approve of your decorating choices. Food is another adventure. You don't grow up eating fruit from orchards or vegetables from farms. You eat things gathered from forests that look radioactive. But hey, they're edible. And that's all that matters. The Night Sisters have this habit of using magic to purify or prepare ingredients that would kill a normal person. So your meals might taste fine, but they probably glow a little. Night Brothers hunt most of their food, and that usually involves bringing down something that looks like it escaped from a nightmare. If you ever bring home a small creature, people congratulate you because that's not normal here. Everything is big, aggressive, and allergic to being eaten. One of the most unusual things about growing up here is how close the community is. When your environment is this intense, people stick together because they have to. You learn to rely on others, share knowledge, and pass down stories that help the next generation survive. Dathomir might look chaotic from the outside, but there's structure, there's culture, there's tradition, and there's respect for the land, even if the land doesn't respect you back. People here know that their world is dangerous, but they also see it as home. They're proud of their origin, because enduring this planet means you're built different, mentally and physically. If you leave Dathomir and go to Coruscant, you're amazed at how soft life is there. People complain about traffic and high rent while you're looking around thinking, wow, nobody has tried to eat me today, what a paradise. You walk around with this natural confidence, not because you're arrogant, but because surviving Dathomir gives you perspective. When your childhood involves dodging rankers, you're not scared of a busy sidewalk. And then there's the Force presence. Even if you're not Force sensitive, you feel the weirdness in the air. Night Sister magic has a smell, a texture, this weight that hangs everywhere. It isn't like the Jedi's calm, be one with the Force philosophy. This is more like, the Force is wild, unpredictable, and by the way, it glows green at night. You grow up understanding that the galaxy is bigger and stranger than most people imagine. You don't see the Force as something distant or mystical. It's literally part of your daily surroundings. One thing that shapes your life on Dathomir is how isolated the planet is. Ships rarely come here unless they have a reason. Most outsiders avoid it completely because they don't want to deal with the Night Sisters, or the wildlife, or the general planet-wide vibe of turn back. You might grow up seeing barely any travelers, meaning your world feels small and self-contained. News from the galaxy arrives slowly. If the Republic is doing something, you'll hear about it eventually. But you won't see Jedi walking around the village, offering peace and friendly conversations. Jedi show up on Dathomir when something has gone very wrong. The interesting part is that despite all this danger, the people here aren't miserable. They laugh, they joke, they have families, they celebrate things. Their traditions look unusual to outsiders, but for them, it's normal. You grow up seeing people dance around fires, chant during ceremonies, paint symbols on each other for festivals, and gather for nighttime meals that feel almost cozy, at least until something growls outside the hut. Your childhood toys might be carved bone figurines, ancient trinkets, little pieces of magic, simple handmade stuff. You don't have holoprojector games or fancy gadgets. You don't need them. Your entertainment is outside, watching the sky turn red in different shades, exploring the edges of forests you're technically not supposed to go near, and listening to stories from elders about creatures that used to roam the planet centuries ago. Eventually, you grow up strong. Dathomir forces you to adapt. You learn responsibility early, you learn awareness early, and you learn courage early. By the time you're old enough to leave the planet, you're the kind of person who walks onto a starship and immediately checks exits, scans shadows, and listens for sounds nobody else hears. So yeah, being born on Dathomir is rough. It's beautiful in its own twisted way, but it's rough. It's intense, chaotic, fascinating, and absolutely not the place you'd want to spawn if you had a choice. Felucia takes the 7th place on our list, and honestly, the planet earns it without even trying. It's one of those worlds where the first thing you say is, wow, this place is beautiful, and the second thing you say is, oh, everything here wants to kill me. It's like nature took a bunch of crayons, snapped them in half, spilled neon paint everywhere, and then decided to give all the plants a bad attitude. Being born here feels like you spawned inside a psychedelic screensaver that occasionally bites. So imagine this. You're born in the middle of giant mushrooms, taller than buildings. Not cute little Mario mushrooms. I'm talking skyscraper-sized fungi that pulse, glow, and sometimes make weird noises, like they're breathing. And they kind of are. Felucia's ecosystem is so alive that even the plants look like they're thinking about taxes and politics. The first thing you learn as a baby here is that colours don't mean pretty. Colours mean danger. A glowing blue leaf could be poisonous. A pink vine might be a creature pretending to be a plant. A giant yellow bulb, trust me, don't poke it. That thing is either highly toxic or filled with gas that smells so bad it makes rankers walk away. Life on Felucia is basically a training course in how not to touch stuff. Most planets give you trees, dirt, maybe some grass. Felucia gives you an acid jungle full of creatures that look like a biology teacher's fever dream. There are actual villages here. Felucians, the native amphibious people, live in tight-knit communities scattered across safer pockets of land. They're peaceful, spiritual, and incredibly skilled at navigating the planet's madness. If you're born into one of their tribes, your childhood is a mix of learning survival skills, herbal knowledge, and which giant mushrooms won't turn you into soup. But if you're not Felucian, good luck. Off-world settlers barely last a week unless they're part of a Republic research team or a military outpost. People come to Felucia thinking, oh, it's a colourful jungle planet. How bad could it be? Then they spend 3 days trying not to inhale spores that make you see the Force in 4K HDR. Felucia's entire surface breathes. Literally, everything here emits spores, chemicals, scents, and if you don't know which ones are safe, you're gambling with your lungs. Babies born here wear protective veils from day one, not because their parents are paranoid, but because every hour the air changes flavour. One morning, the air might smell fresh and floral. By afternoon, it smells like the inside of a sarlacc with a sinus infection. That's just Felucia saying hello. Let's talk fauna. Felucia has some of the most bizarre wildlife in the galaxy. You've got temus creatures that wander around like giant cattle covered in coral. Then there are the jungle rankers. Yes, rankers, but neon-coloured and way more flexible, because apparently regular rankers weren't terrifying enough. Imagine going outside as a kid and seeing a ranker that looks like it escaped from a lava lamp, casually walking past your house like it's looking for coffee. That's your average weekday morning. One of the funniest parts of growing up here is watching outsiders freak out over every noise, while local kids just casually walk through glowing forests like it's nothing. Felucians have this incredibly calm attitude, probably because if they panicked every time something moved, they'd never stop screaming. Another thing about Felucia, the ground is never stable. Mushrooms grow, die, collapse, and regrow in random cycles. One day, the path to your home is a nice clear patch of dirt. The next day, a mushroom the size of a small apartment grows right in the middle of it, so now you either walk around it or climb it like you're in some weird nature obstacle course. Daily life is a mix of beautiful views and constant caution. Felucians use natural dye from plants to decorate clothes, cook meals with strange glowing vegetables, and harvest medicinal herbs that can heal wounds faster than Bacta if you know how to mix them properly. If you don't know how, well, then you're in trouble, because Felucia doesn't do half measures. A plant is either medicine or poison, there's no middle ground. Food here is interesting too. A lot of it comes from mushrooms and giant plant bulbs. Some taste amazing, others taste like you licked a Hutt's armpit. And before you ask, no, you don't always know which is which. That's part of the fun. Every meal is a gamble. Kids grow up with surprisingly good instincts, because by age 6, you've already learned how to sniff a plant and decide if it's edible or if it'll knock you out for a week. Lore-wise, Felucia has seen some of the most chaotic battles in the Clone Wars. The terrain makes it perfect for ambushes, which means the planet was basically a playground for anyone who liked hiding behind glowing mushrooms to shoot at clones. If you're born here during the war, you're hearing blaster fire before bedtime stories. Jedi like Aayla Secura had troops stationed here, and the planet's weird environment messed with scanners so badly that nobody ever felt safe. Even after the Clone Wars, the Empire tried to take over Felucia for agricultural experiments, which is hilarious because trying to control Felucia is like trying to teach a rancor manners. Spoiler, not happening. Still, Felucia isn't all danger. There are quiet moments. Sunlight filtering through the massive mushrooms creates these beautiful waves of colour on the ground. Nighttime brings glowing spores that float like tiny lanterns. You can sit on a tall stump with your friends, breathe slowly, and feel like you're inside a living painting. Those moments are rare but unforgettable, and they make locals love their home in a way outsiders never understand. Felucians also have a strong bond with the land. They treat the planet almost like a giant living creature. They don't fight it, they adapt to it. They know which trails shift every week, which plants are territorial, and which creatures get grumpy if you walk past their nests. Kids are raised with a lot of patience and a lot of practical knowledge. By age 10, a Felucian child can navigate the jungle better than most adults from other worlds. But again, for anyone else, this place is terrifying. Even the light behaves weird. It bends, reflects, and filters through plants in strange angles, making every shadow look suspicious. Schools here aren't your normal school buildings. Some are built into hollowed-out mushroom trunks, reinforced so the kids don't have class inside a giant fungus that collapses during a storm. Lessons focus heavily on survival, plant knowledge, and how to stay calm when you hear something rustling behind you. Teachers sometimes pause mid-lesson like, "Hold on, something's walking on the roof," and everyone just sits quietly until the creature moves away. Social life is interesting too. Felucian families are incredibly close because the environment forces cooperation. Picnics happen indoors more often than outdoors, unless you like the idea of sitting on a mushroom that squirts toxic juice when it gets warm. Kids play games that involve navigating mazes of roots and vines, building little huts out of dried fungus, or racing to collect safe herbs before storm clouds roll in. The storms on Felucia are something else. Rain mixes with spores, creating this strange glowing mist that looks beautiful, but can make you hallucinate frogs that speak Huttese if you breathe too much of it. Local families shut their doors tight, hang filters over the windows, and ride out the storm with warm soup and stories about the old days. Despite all of this, the danger, the weirdness, the constant guessing game between plants and creatures, people born here develop an insane level of resilience. In a strange way, Felucia shapes them into some of the toughest people in the galaxy. But if we're ranking planets based on places you'd want to be born, Felucia lands on 7th place because it mixes danger with unpredictability. At least on Mustafar or Kessel, you know exactly what will kill you. On Felucia, the list of possibilities updates every morning, and that uncertainty is what makes being born here such a challenge. So yeah, Felucia is gorgeous, colourful, weird, dangerous, and surprisingly peaceful at the right times. But unless you're a native Felucian or someone who genuinely enjoys taking risks every 5 minutes, being born here is a bit like waking up in a beautiful dream that occasionally punches you in the face. And taking the 8th place on our list, Geonosis. Honestly, Geonosis is like being born inside a giant metal workshop run by very stressed bugs. This is industrial hell, with the volume at maximum. And you're the newest baby in a world that hasn't stopped working since the Clone Wars started. Geonosis looks dry from orbit, but when you grow up here, you learn that dry is the nicest possible word. The whole planet is a rusty desert made of rock, metal debris, ancient factories, and tunnels carved by millions of Geonosians over thousands of years. If you think a desert is unpleasant, imagine a desert that also sounds like someone is drilling into a wall 24/7. That's Geonosis. The first thing you notice after being born here is the noise. It never stops. You don't get birds, rivers, wind in the trees. You get gears grinding, conveyor belts rattling, air pumps shaking the walls, and Geonosian machinery humming like a swarm of angry insects beneath your feet. For a newborn, it's probably like being raised inside a starship engine. You fall asleep to factory sounds, wake up to factory sounds, and grow up thinking silence is a myth told by travelers. The second thing you notice is the color palette. Everything is brown, red, dusty orange, or metal grey. Some planets have pretty sunsets. Geonosis looks like someone smeared rust across the horizon and called it a day. Your whole childhood feels like living inside a toolbox. Even the sunlight has this tired reddish tint, like the sun is exhausted from looking at the place. Now, one of the biggest things about growing up here is that you don't get a quiet surface world. Almost everything important on Geonosis happens underground. That's where the hives are. Massive, maze-like caverns packed with tunnels, chambers, bridges, balconies, and machinery that never stops moving. Being born here means you'll probably spend your first few years underground, because the surface storms are brutal. Dust storms on Geonosis can take off the paint from a starship, so your parents keep you below ground where the hive actually functions. Daily life here is shaped by the Geonosians themselves. If you're human, you're basically the weird outsider who doesn't have wings, doesn't click to communicate, and doesn't enjoy chemical signals floating in the air. The Geonosians have an entire complex social structure: queens, drones, workers, warriors, and you're just some soft, slow creature trying not to bump your head on a low metal beam. If you are a Geonosian baby, let's say hypothetically you're born into the species, then your entire early life is incredibly structured. Geonosian culture is obsessed with work, efficiency, and contribution to the hive. No one grows up thinking about hobbies or dreams. You're groomed to serve your role. Whether that's engineering, maintenance, soldier duty, or working on production lines, you're part of the machine. That mentality shapes the whole planet. Let's talk about the factories, because they're the core of Geonosis. Before the Clone Wars, this place was the galaxy's biggest source of battle droids. That's why the Techno Union and Count Dooku invested so much into it. You grow up surrounded by old droid parts, assembly equipment, and giant facilities that sometimes still run on autopilot decades later. Some of these factories haven't been touched since the Clone Wars ended, and they still whir to life occasionally, like haunted vending machines. Imagine being a kid walking through old tunnels and suddenly hearing an entire line of B-1 droids activate by accident. You'd sprint out of there faster than a pod racer. Even if those droids are broken, the sound alone can make your heart stop. The locals don't see it as creepy. To them, it's just leftover industry. One of the hardest parts of being born here is the climate. Geonosis is hot, dry, and the air is filled with metal particles. You basically breathe spicy dust your entire childhood. Even when you're indoors, the ventilation systems are constantly filtering sand, metal flakes, and whatever is shedding off the machinery that day. A humidifier would probably explode from shock if you brought one here. And don't expect open water. There are no oceans, lakes, or rivers. Water is imported or synthesized, so baths and showers are luxuries. Most people clean themselves with sonic showers or wipes because real water is too precious to waste. If you want a swimming pool, you can forget it. Dust is the default state of everything. You wipe a table clean, and 2 minutes later, it's beige again. Of course, Geonosis isn't completely dead. The wildlife here is intense. You've got Achlays, the huge reptile crab monsters, with claws like kitchen knives. There are also Nerfs, but they're imported and usually raised indoors because outside conditions are too harsh. And let's not forget the Archnogs, giant insect creatures that roam the rocky plains. Growing up here makes you cautious. You learn to step carefully, listen for vibrations, and stay close to walls during storms. Children on other planets run around in parks. Children on Geonosis grow up understanding that the ground itself might collapse under them, because the planet is full of empty chambers and mining shafts beneath the surface. It's like living above Swiss cheese made of sandstone. One of the strangest things about Geonosis is how much history sits around untouched. The catacombs, the old droid foundries, the arena where Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme almost got executed. All of that is still there. The Republic never fully rebuilt the planet after the wars, and the Empire kept it under lockdown for years. Being born here means you grow up next to landmarks that shaped galactic history, but no one treats them like museums. They're just places you avoid because they're unstable or haunted by leftover tech kids here. Stories about Jedi battling monsters in the arena, but they grow up knowing the arena is just another dangerous ruin. And about scavengers, Geonosis attracts a surprising amount of them. Tech hunters, old separatist loyalists, even black market buyers come here looking for forgotten battle droid parts or schematics. If you're born here, you'll eventually see shady people wander in and out of the planet, trying to pick apart history. Locals are used to it. They stay out of the way and let the off-worlders get lost in the tunnels. Some never come back. Let's talk food. You don't get fresh fruit here unless it's imported. Geonosis cuisine is very texture-based. Lots of insect protein, fungal paste, nutrient bars, and things that come in sealed containers. You don't grow up with big family dinners. You grow up with rations, nutrient gels, and whatever the hive provides. It's not glamorous, but you do get used to it. Humans living here usually rely on shipments from other systems, so you might develop strange cravings for Coruscant street food or Naboo bread. Social life, surprisingly strong. Everyone here bond through shared suffering. If you're human, your social circle will likely be other off-world workers, engineers, maintenance techs, and the occasional researcher studying Geonosian biology. If you're born here is the sense of duty. Even humans absorb it. This planet never sleeps. It taught an entire galaxy how fast droids could be produced. The hive mentality, the relentless work ethic, the idea that everything you build contributes to something bigger, that's part of life here. You're born into constant movement. endless tasks, and the expectation that you adapt quickly or you fall behind. Growing up here means carrying that weight, the constant reminder that your planet was once the center of a galactic conflict and never fully recovered. But the tough childhood here comes with strengths. You learn to work with your hands. You learn to navigate complicated environments. You understand structural engineering because you literally live in a giant honeycomb. And when you finally leave the planet and visit somewhere peaceful, like Naboo or Chandrila, it blows your mind. You see grass and think it's fake. You feel humidity and wonder why the air suddenly has moisture. You sit in silence and realize for the first time that your ears don't need to filter out the constant hum of machinery. So yeah, Geonosis takes the 8th place on our list. And honestly, it earns it. This planet shapes you through tough conditions, loud environments, dangerous wildlife, and a culture built entirely around work and survival. Nal Hutta is one of those places where the name already warns you that life won't be easy. Even if you'd never heard of the Hutts or their reputation, the moment you step outside, the smell alone feels like it's trying to file a complaint against your senses. If the galaxy had a capital of questionable life choices, this would be the address. When people imagine the homeworld of the Hutts, they picture gold, palaces, treasures, endless feasts. You know, the classic crime lord luxury. But Nal Hutta isn't that kind of rich planet environment. The wealth is real, yes, but the planet looks like someone dumped luxury items in a swamp and then forgot about them for 1,000 years. The irony is that the Hutts could make the place nicer if they wanted, but they don't care. Comfort for them doesn't require clean air or dry land. It requires power, deals, and enough space to roll around. The landscape never lets you forget who owns the place. You've got vast marshes stretching for miles, oily water reflecting greenish clouds, and patches of mud thick enough to trap a land speeder. Imagine trying to go to school with boots that get swallowed by the ground every 5 minutes. Even locals walk with this "I'm used to it, but I still hate it" expression. And the air? It's a mix of swamp moisture, industrial fumes, and whatever chemicals spill from the refineries when someone decides safety guidelines are optional. Breathing here feels like your nose is reading a crime novel. Now, Nal Hutta isn't empty. The Hutts run the show, but plenty of other species live here too. Most of them either workers, smugglers, or people who made one bad decision. Too many kids grow up hearing stories about deals gone wrong, rival gangs settling scores, and officials who disappear after asking the wrong question. It's the kind of environment that teaches you to keep your head down and mind your own business unless you want to get invited to a meeting you won't return from. The center of activity on Nal Hutta is its economy. The entire planet functions as a giant business headquarters for the Hutt clans. But imagine a corporate world where HR settles disputes with blasters and negotiations involve everything except honesty. From spice trading to shipping to entertainment industries that you'd never bring up at a family dinner, everything filters through the clans. Kids here grow up understanding social hierarchies faster than math. They don't learn please and thank you, they learn don't interrupt the boss. Surprisingly, Nal Hutta has its own kind of rhythm. Markets run all night, bright with neon signs that flicker like they're scared of the dark. Sellers shout deals you know are probably scams, and customers pretend not to care. If you grow up here, navigating this chaos becomes second nature. You know which alleys are safe at which hours, which vendors won't water down the food, and which droids are programmed to report suspicious behavior straight to a Hutt's palace. Speaking of food, that's another adventure. Local cuisine mostly involves creatures that grow in swamps, things with too many legs or not enough. But the Hutts import delicacies from across the galaxy, so every neighborhood has at least one vendor selling something recognizable. The catch is that you'll pay more for that small comfort than your weekly allowance. People get creative, spice up swamp creatures enough, and no one will know what they're eating anyway. Schooling on Nal Hutta depends heavily on who you are. If your family works for a clan, your education is mostly about survival, etiquette around Hutts, and understanding contracts written in ways that benefit the person who wrote them. If you're part of the neutral population, your school is probably old, partially flooded, and run by teachers who are paid enough to not quit, but not enough to truly care. They'll teach you reading, counting, and what to do when a Hutt's enforcer walks into the room. One thing that stands out on Nal Hutta is the constant background noise, Swamps bubble, machinery hums, and speeders zoom overhead at all hours. Peace and quiet are rare. The only time the planet goes silent is when something bad is about to happen. And everyone knows that silence is your cue to leave the area immediately. Nal Hutta has a long history of strategic importance. Originally, the planet wasn't even called Nal Hutta. It used to be Evakar, until the Hutts showed up with contracts that probably looked fair at first glance. A few decades later, the Evoki realized they'd signed away their entire homeworld, and the Hutts had taken over everything. Once the Hutts settled in, they reshaped the world to their liking. Forests became swamps, clean air turned murky, and urban centers grew into dense clusters of palaces, casinos, brothels, and warehouses. Every building looks like it was designed by someone who cared more about gold accents than safety standards. The architecture reflects the Hutt mindset. It doesn't matter if the building sinks a little, just make the throne room shiny. One interesting thing about daily life here is how casually everyone talks about crime. It's something normal. A kid might mention that their uncle deals spice shipments, the way another kid might say their uncle owns a bakery. You grow up understanding that trust is currency and secrets are worth more than credits, and being polite to the wrong person can save your life. If you ever get sick on Nal Hutta, you better hope you know someone with connections. Medical centers exist, but the nice ones are for clan members and high-ranking smugglers. Everyone else gets clinics that look like they were built during the Old Republic and never updated. The doctors are skilled, but they work with what they have, which is usually not much. One thing kids here learn early is negotiation. You can't get by on charm alone, you need strategy. You want candy from a street vendor, you're negotiating. You want to join a speeder race without getting scammed, you're negotiating. You want to cross a district run by a rival gang? Definitely negotiating. Growing up here gives you social awareness that people on clean planets never develop. Despite everything, people don't leave easily. Nal Hutta has opportunities you won't find on respectable planets. If you're tough, clever, and able to read a room, you can climb social ladders faster than anywhere else. The downside is that one wrong move can knock you down just as quickly. But for some families, this world offers a second chance, even if that second chance comes wrapped in industrial pollution and questionable contracts. You also see all kinds of strange visitors, smugglers, bounty hunters, diplomats bribing their way through meetings, and people with secrets they really don't want discovered. Every day you overhear conversations you probably shouldn't, and learning to forget what you heard becomes an important life skill. And that brings us to the one thing Nal Hutta is truly known for, and it's control. The Hutts maintain order in their own unique way, which usually means everyone follows the rules, or else. That kind of environment shapes childhood in a very particular way. You learn caution, patience, and the importance of picking your battles. You also learn that complaining loudly is a shortcut to a bad day. So why does Nal Hutta land in this spot on the ranking? Because while it's filthy, dangerous, corrupted, and morally questionable, it's still a functioning world with communities, culture, and enough stability to survive. It's bad, sure, but not in the actively trying to erase all life category, like some planets higher on the list. Nal Hutta is miserable in a social, environmental, and ethical way, but not apocalyptic. In the end, growing up here gives you a strange mix of survival instincts and street smarts. You figure out who not to upset, where not to walk, and how to smell trouble before you see it. It's not glamorous and it's definitely not safe, and honestly, if you can handle this planet, the rest of the galaxy feels almost too easy. If someone asked you where to start a new life in the Star Wars galaxy, Tatooine would be that option you scroll past without stopping. Then scroll past again and only click on accidentally because your finger slipped. The place has a reputation, and it absolutely earns it. It's not the kind of planet where you're born with hope. You're born with a sunburn. Tatooine isn't a desert planet because of ancient tragedy or some catastrophic war. It's a desert because the universe looked at this rock and said, yeah, that's fine, make it sand forever. 2 suns, endless dunes, no rain, and wind that feels like someone threw a hairdryer into your face. You don't remember your first steps here, but you definitely remember your first dehydration headache. The moment you're old enough to understand what outside means, you also understand what stay inside during midday or you're cooked means. Families don't tell bedtime stories here, they tell sunscreen warnings. And because moisture is the most valuable thing on the planet, everyone grows up with this strange obsession. With water, kids on other planets dream about playing with droids or getting their first speeder. Tatooine kids dream of having an actual shower without needing 3 forms of permission. The air itself feels tired. It's heavy with dust, warm even at night, and never smells clean. You wake up with sand in your bed, sand in your clothes, sand in your food, and eventually you stop fighting it. Tatooine raises you to accept defeat early. You're not winning against the environment, you're negotiating with it every hour. And speaking of negotiation, the Hutts. You know how every planet has its upper class, its politicians, its power players? Tatooine has Jabba, or someone like him before and after him. It doesn't matter which Hutt is in charge, the experience is the same. They run the planet like a casino mixed with a criminal daycare. They don't govern, they own. If you're born in their territory, you grow up hearing their name more often than your own. Your first word might genuinely be tribute. Growing up under Hutts changes the way you see life. On most planets, kids are raised to respect law, safety, stability. On Tatooine, you're raised to respect not catching the wrong person's attention. It's not fear, it's survival etiquette. You learn early which parts of Mos Espa or Mos Eisley you don't walk through. You learn which creatures you never poke, and you learn that if someone offers you a job before you're a teenager, they probably want you to steal something. The economy here is exactly what you'd expect: fragile, improvised, and filled with side hustles. You don't grow up wanting to be a doctor or a teacher. You grow up wanting to be anything that gets you off this planet. Moisture farming, trading junk, scavenging old wrecks, repairing speeders, held together by hope. The job list is short and depressing. If you end up in a moisture farm family, your childhood is spending all day looking at machines that pull water out of air that barely contains any. It's like squeezing a stone for juice. The towns aren't exactly pretty either. Everything is sun-bleached. Walls look tired, buildings look tired, the people look even more tired. But the funny thing is, despite the misery, Tatooine has this strange charm. When the sun finally goes down and the temperature drops, the streets get a bit more alive. People gather, talk, drink, and complain about the day like it's a competitive sport. That's where the beer with a friend vibe really fits. Because everyone here is working through the same suffering, and that creates a weird sense of community. The creatures on Tatooine don't make life easier. A bantha is cute until one sneezes and sends a dust cloud into your face. Womp rats look small until they're staring at you, like they're calculating your nutritional value. And Tusken Raiders, well, every region has its traditions, and theirs involves reminding you that the dunes belong to them. There's no fair warning on this planet. If you wander too far from town, you earn a rapid lesson in why locals don't do that. Still, living here isn't just misery. There's a rhythm to the chaos. You start to appreciate nights so quiet you can hear grains of sand moving. You get used to the twin suns rising with that harsh, beautiful glow, and you experience a kind of freedom that only comes from living somewhere with no rules beyond don't get caught and don't go into the dunes unprepared. The most interesting thing about Tatooine is how connected it is despite looking isolated. Smugglers, traders, criminals, Jedi, bounty hunters. This planet attracts everyone who's running from something. You grow up hearing stories about starships landing with mysterious passengers. Kids on other worlds dream about space travel because it sounds exciting. Kids on Tatooine dream about space travel because it's literally the exit door. This planet used to have oceans, actual water. Long ago, it wasn't a desert at all. The native species were wiped out, and the world slowly turned into the dry wasteland, you know? Every time someone mentions that history, locals just laugh and say, "Sure, and next you'll tell me we've got snow somewhere." But that old history explains why there are so many hidden caves and weird ruins under the sand. People stumble on them sometimes, dig a bit too deep, and immediately regret it. Another weird detail, the Jawas. You can't explain Tatooine without talking about these little desert traders. They're everywhere. They show up before you even know what money is. And they're the reason you learn to lock your stuff. Jawas will steal your shoes while you're wearing them. They're not mean, they're just professionals. They also bring life to the planet. They're giant crawler machines. They're screaming deals. their constant bargaining, they're the sound of Tatooine. And honestly, they might be the only reason some families survive. Then you've got Mos Eisley. If planets had a bad decisions per square meter score, Mos Eisley would win every year. Growing up near that spaceport teaches you more about the galaxy than any school. You overhear smugglers boasting about jobs they're absolutely lying about. You see ships patched together with scrap and hope, and every tavern looks like the kind of place where a fight could break out if someone coughs improperly. Despite all of this, Tatooine isn't hopeless. The people here have a strange resilience. Life beats them down, and they stand back up with a shrug. You can see why a kid like Luke grew up dreaming of something better. The entire planet feels like it's daring you to try escaping. The sunsets, the rare moments of peace, become something you hold on to. The horizon looks endless, like a promise. On a personal level, Tatooine shapes your personality fast. You learn patience because waiting for cooler hours is your daily routine. You learn toughness because the world gives you no alternative. And you develop a dry sense of humour, because if you don't laugh at the absurdity of living on a giant sandblasted frying pan, you'll lose your mind. Conversations often start with, "How's your day?" and end with, "Yeah, mine too." One thing that stands out, you always know when off-worlders arrive. They step outside, squint up at the suns, and immediately regret everything. Locals don't even blink anymore. They just watch newcomers melt and quietly bet how long they'll last before begging for shade. You don't forget Tatooine. The planet stays with you even when you finally leave. For a kid born here, the challenge is real. Not impossible, not hopeless, just relentlessly tough. Tatooine shapes you like sand shapes rock, slowly, constantly, and with zero consideration for your comfort. If you grow up on this planet, you learn independence fast. You learn how to fix things yourself, how to read the weather, how to stay alive with limited resources, and how to dodge both danger and responsibility until you figure out a way off-world. So yeah, 10th place feels right. It's not cursed like Malachor, haunted like Korriban, or bombed into dust like Mandalore, but it earns its spot by being a daily grind from the minute you're born. A world where every day asks, how badly do you want to survive? And then throws sand in your face before you can answer. If Mustafar is the oven, Tatooine is the frying pan. And that frying pan is on high heat, cracked handle, no guarantee it won't tip over. You know how Tatooine already feels like the galaxy's "Are you sure you want to start here?" tutorial level? Jakku somehow looked at that and said, "Cool, but what if everything was broken, stolen, or half buried under sand?" That's the vibe here. Even the sun looks tired on this planet. Jakku isn't ancient like Korriban or cursed like Malachor. It's not a war-forged wasteland like post-bombardment Mandalore. It's just a place that got kicked around too many times and never recovered. A whole planet built on the idea of, yeah, that's probably ruined, but we can strip it for parts. Growing up here means your childhood toys are scrap metal, your playground is a crashed Star Destroyer, and your favourite family tradition is probably bargaining with traders who look like they haven't had water since the Clone Wars. And that's not an insult. Water is basically the rarest thing here that isn't an Imperial TIE wing sticking out of the ground, and the funniest part? Jakku used to be a normal planet. Not a paradise, but it had lakes, soil that didn't hate you, and weather that didn't exist solely to exfoliate your skin, with sand at 200 kilometers per hour. Then the Empire and New Republic decided to turn the planet into a galactic final round arena, and the battle that followed slammed Jakku harder than any other Outer Rim world, crashed cruisers as far as the eye can see. If you're born here, you grow up assuming giant metal skeletons sticking out of the desert are just part of the natural landscape. Like someone from Alderaan sees a mountain. Daily life here has a very specific rhythm. Wake up early to avoid heat stroke, check your gear, hope no raiders stole your things overnight, then walk half a marathon to look for scrap valuable enough to trade for something edible. Kids on other planets complain about chores. Kids on Jakku complain that the moisture vaporators keep breaking because every gust of wind fills them with sand. And speaking of sand, Tatooine has a reputation, but Jakku has range. You've got fine sand, sharp sand, sticky sand, sand that reflects sunlight like a mirror, sand that clings to metal so hard you need acid to wash it off. You basically need a daily relationship with sand the way city people deal with public transport. You hate it, but you accept that it's part of you now. Jakku doesn't have big cities, it has settlements, And settlement is a polite word for a collection of tents, shacks, and whatever scraps people didn't fight each other for. Places like Naima Outpost give you the best snapshot of what growing up here feels like. The whole community depends on scavenging, trading, and not dying of dehydration. Everyone's got sunburns, everyone's grumpy, and everyone knows exactly how much their life would improve if the sun just took one day off. Let's talk economy. Jakku's economy is basically the Star Wars version of a garage sale that never ends. People pick through old Imperial wreckage, find something with wires, gears, or a power cell, and bring it to the closest junk boss, who either underpays you or tells you it's worthless. You learn negotiation skills young here. Not for fun, but because your dinner depends on convincing someone that a busted transponder is actually worth a portion. There's a weird kind of charm to it though. If you live here long enough, you become incredibly resourceful. You can turn a broken blaster into a lamp, a dented droid leg into a cooking tool, and a cracked visor into something resembling a window. Survival on Jakku is a whole lifestyle, and the people who grow up here develop this impressive ability to adapt to anything later in life. After all, if you learn how to thrive on a desert junkyard world, living anywhere else is basically vacation. The isolation hits different. Other planets at least have trade routes, visitors, traffic. Jakku doesn't get many tourists unless they got lost or their ship collapsed mid-flight and gravity finished the job. Even smugglers avoid the place unless they're hiding something or someone. Jakku is filled with secrets most people never talk about. Beneath all that sand and rust are remnants of ancient settlements long before the Empire ever crashed here. And during the war, the Empire hid vaults underground, containing relics, technology, and shady projects. You could live your whole life in a hut next to a crater and never realize there's a forgotten Imperial bunker a few kilometers away. Food culture? It's exactly what you expect. Practical, bland, and based on whatever ingredients don't spoil in 50-degree weather. You're not growing vegetables unless they can photosynthesize despair. Most meals are traded goods, preserved packets, or something cooked with scrap-built heating coils. You don't even realize the food is terrible until you leave the planet and taste real cuisine. Then you go, oh, that's what flavor feels like. Social life on Jakku is bare bones but honest. People don't pretend to be rich, smart, or important. Everyone is equally dusty and equally annoyed by the environment. Kids grow up helping adults because life requires it. You learn early who you can trust and who will trade your scavenged treasure for a handful of worthless credits. Then there's the fauna. Jakku doesn't have a lot of wildlife, but the creatures that did evolve here are tough. Massive, steel-pecking birds, weird burrowing things with too many teeth, and insects that survive on radiator fluid. If you see something crawling on Jakku, you assume it bites, stings, steals your stuff, or all three. One thing that makes Jakku especially rough is the sense of being forgotten. Other desert planets at least matter in some way. Tatooine has history, community, and spaceports. Jakku feels like the galaxy dumped its problems here and walked away. Even the New Republic barely cared about rebuilding. You grow up listening to stories about pilots, heroes, and planets full of life, and you start wondering why Jakku didn't get any of that love. Weather is another daily challenge. Besides the heat, you have these brutal storms that roll across the plains. They hit like a wall, blasting sand so hard it strips paint off metal. You have to dive into shelters, cover your face, and hope your equipment survives the beating. After a few years, you stop seeing storms as dangerous and start seeing them as annoying. Nightlife? Not much. A few lamps, a makeshift bar, maybe an old holoprojector showing outdated programs. You talk with neighbors, trade gossip, complain about the sun, and laugh at how ridiculous life can be here. Simple, but there's something honest about it. And despite all these hardships, Jakku has a weird beauty. When the sun sets, the scrap metal glows orange, the dunes cast long shadows, and the wrecked ships look like skeletons dreaming of the past. The planet may be broken, but it has a character, stubborn, rough, and strangely fascinating. If you ever wanted a planet that looks like a vacation poster but feels like a tax audit, Mon Cala during wartime is the perfect example. Imagine growing up in a place with crystal blue waters, floating cities, colourful reefs, bioluminescent wildlife, all of it looking like something you'd see on a postcard. And then imagine every couple of months, a Star Destroyer rolls overhead and turns the whole paradise into a stress simulator. That's your childhood. The thing about Mon Cala is that the planet can't decide if it wants to be peaceful or dramatic. On a good day, it's stunning. Schools of glowing fish drift past the windows, coral structures shine like neon trees, and the ocean currents hum quietly around the buildings. It's one of those places where you look around and think, yeah, I could live here forever. But during the Clone Wars and the Imperial Era, you might not get to enjoy any of that before someone tries to turn your neighborhood into debris. The underwater cities are engineering masterpieces. Everything is built to handle pressure, currents, and the occasional sea creature trying to snack on your home. As a kid, you probably learn how to swim before you learn how to read. You walk out the door wrong and you're in the ocean. The good thing is, Mon Calamari and Quarren children grow up surrounded by this. It's normal. Their schools, gatherings and social events are built inside these glowing underwater bubbles that feel both futuristic and cozy. Now, here's where the mood changes. War doesn't care that the planet looks like a painting. When conflict hits Mon Cala, it hits hard. The galaxy seems to have this weird obsession with invading any place that looks peaceful, and Mon Cala is always on the list. During the Clone Wars, the Separatists wanted control over its shipyards and resources. Later, the Empire wanted the same thing, but with extra intimidation. So while you're trying to enjoy your ocean view, someone up top is planning a blockade. Every family on Mon Cala has a storm drill. You grow up knowing what it means when the water starts vibrating slightly. That's not a fish, that's a cruiser entering orbit. Instead of fire drills, you practice getting into secure shelters without panicking, because even one blast can create pressure waves that shake entire districts. And the thing is, Mon Cala is full of people who refuse to leave, no matter what's going on. There's a strong sense of pride on this planet. They're stubborn in the best way. These are our oceans. Good luck taking them. Daily life is a strange mix of calm routines and sudden adrenaline spikes. You might start your morning by swimming through coral tunnels to school, greeting friends, enjoying a plate of fresh sea fruit, and then suddenly alarms go off and the teachers calmly guide everyone deeper into reinforced chambers. It's weird how fast people learn to switch from relaxing to defensive mode. You grow up understanding that beauty and danger walk together here. The Imperial Era hits differently. The Empire isn't subtle. They show up in giant metal triangles and expect everyone to act impressed. Kids on Mon Cala probably grow up thinking Star Destroyers are just very rude neighbours who don't understand personal space. There's always some officer lecturing the locals, demanding loyalty, or threatening the king. Meanwhile, the Quarren and Mon Calamari political arguments keep boiling. You get used to debates happening everywhere, at home, in the marketplace, even in cafes underwater. And because tensions flare often, you learn early how complicated your planet's history is. What's funny is that Mon Cala's shipyards are both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, they offer some of the best engineering jobs in the galaxy. You see cruisers being built every day, massive frames humming above the water. On the other hand, those shipyards are exactly why everyone wants to occupy the place. It's like living on valuable land that constantly attracts unwanted attention. Your parents might work in ship construction, and you know for a fact that if there's a new blockade, they're pulling all-nighters and not sleeping for 2 days. Let's talk food for a second. With a planet made almost entirely of ocean, the variety is wild. Everything is fresh, sometimes too fresh. Your dinners are colourful, weird-looking, and more flavourful than anything you find on dry worlds. People on Mon Cala bond over food, and the gatherings are warm and loud. The ocean culture makes people very communal. Neighbours feel like extended family. Even during wartime, the one constant is that Mon Cala folks stick together. What truly makes Mon Cala unique is that even under siege, it never loses its identity. The ocean keeps moving, the coral keeps growing, and the people keep rebuilding. You don't grow numb to danger, you grow tired of it, but you never let it define your life. The friendships you form here are strong. Underwater cultures tend to create tight communities, and Mon Cala is no different. People look after each other instinctively. When the alarm goes off, you grab your neighbour's kid without thinking twice. When the danger passes, the whole district gathers for food, stories and laughter. That rhythm keeps you balanced. If you ever leave Mon Cala and travel to dry planets, you immediately miss the ocean. The air feels wrong, the land feels stiff, and the buildings seem too still. You spend your time looking for water fountains and blue lights just to feel at home. And every time conflict hits another world, you recognize the signs long before anyone else notices, because you grew up with that constant shift between peace and chaos. Living on Mon Cala during wartime is a strange experience. You're surrounded by beauty, but interrupted by threats. You learn adaptability without becoming paranoid. You experience culture, art, architecture, community gatherings, all while knowing that at any moment, someone might try to take the planet again. But the strength of the place comes from the people, not the scenery. And honestly, even with the invasions, blockades, and political tension, Mon Cala still feels more alive and welcoming than half the galaxy. It doesn't hide its danger, and it doesn't stop being stunning just because someone wants to start a fight. You grow up with pride, stubbornness, and a deep connection to the ocean that stays with you forever. That's Mon Cala during the wars. Gorgeous, stressful, and unforgettable. The kind of place you complain about while you're there, and miss immediately after you leave. If there's one place in the galaxy where childhood feels optional, it's Corellia. Some planets let you grow up slowly, figure out life at your own pace, maybe learn to ride a creature, or build a sandcastle. Corellia just hands you a wrench when you're old enough to stand and basically goes, "All right, kid, welcome to the shift." People love romanticizing this world because of its famous pilots and legendary ships. But if you grow up here, you quickly learn that the stories never match the smell. You know how planets usually have a fresh morning breeze moment? Corellia's morning breeze smells like someone lit a starship engine and forgot to open a window. Factories run day and night, and the sky has this permanent fog-grey tint that looks like the planet hasn't slept in decades. When you walk to school, you can practically taste the metal dust on your tongue. Locals call it flavour. Outsiders call it a health code violation. And speaking of school, Corellian kids don't stay in classrooms very long. The entire planet is basically one enormous assembly line, and you're expected to join it long before you have any real idea what you want in life. Some kids learn to operate machinery before they learn to drive a speeder. Teachers know that half the students might ditch lessons for actual paying jobs, so nobody bothers pretending this is a normal education system homework. Sure, but half the time your homework is checking your parents' workbench because they're too exhausted to finish their shift. What's funny is that Corellia has this tough, proud culture around building ships. Adults will talk your ear off about the Corellian way, which mostly translates to work hard, don't complain, and if the boss asks for overtime, you say yes even if your fingers are numb. Kids pick that up early. You learn fast that the guy supervising you probably hasn't taken a proper vacation since the Clone Wars, and if you do take a break, someone else takes your slot, and suddenly you're behind. But the real Corellian experience isn't the work, it's the constant noise. There's a hum to this planet, a mechanical heartbeat that never stops. Conveyor belts, engine tests, furnaces, speeders, cargo haulers, all overlapping in this chaotic soundtrack that becomes part of your brain. You try sleeping with that going on. You eventually manage it, but the first few years feel like you're living inside a factory speaker. And the streets? They're not evil, just rough. Corellia has these narrow alleyways filled with scrap vendors, repair shops, and people yelling at droids that stopped working 10 years ago. Kids slip through these places like they're part of the ecosystem. Everyone learns at least one trick for bargaining, one trick for sneaking past security gates, and one trick for spotting if someone's trying to sell you a fake engine coil. There's no innocence here. You're street smart by default. Let's talk food for a second. Corellian meals are basically fuel. You don't sit down for a big feast unless it's a holiday or someone got a raise, and those aren't frequent. Most kids eat something quick before work and something cheap after it. If you want quality, you hit up the roaming food carts near spaceports. Those guys know their craft. It's still affordable, but at least it has flavour that isn't mechanical smoke with a hint of regret. Now, despite everything, Corellians are ridiculously proud of their home. It's almost comical how much they brag about their shipbuilding. And honestly, they're not wrong. Some of the galaxy's best pilots come from here, and they treat flying like an art. Kids grow up hearing stories of Han Solo, Wedge Antilles, Dash Rendar, legends who turned Corellia's chaos into skill. You can't live here and not feel at least a tiny spark of ambition when you see a freighter take off so smoothly it barely touches the atmosphere. And that's another part of daily life. Spaceports everywhere. You might live close to one, and that means your nights are filled with the rumble of freighters and transports lifting off. Some kids stare up at the sky thinking they'll fly out one day. Some stare because they can't sleep through the noise. Corellia has always been a major industrial powerhouse. The Empire loved this place, mostly because they could produce ships fast enough to keep the war machine fed. That meant more factories, more work, and more pressure on families to keep up. During Imperial rule, Corellia felt like a mix of a giant workshop and a military parade ground. Polis Massa. Nobody's trying to eat you, melt you, blast you, or draft you into a crime syndicate. Instead, you grow up surrounded by tablets, scanners, white lights, and people whispering because someone somewhere is always running a diagnostic. Polis Massa isn't even a real planet anymore. It's a cluster of asteroids. Once upon a time, it was a proper world filled with an ancient species, but something catastrophic happened, and now all that's left are drifting rocks with research bases built inside the locals. The Polis Massans are quiet in every way imaginable. They don't speak, they communicate telepathically, and they're so calm and patient that even Jedi would tell them to loosen up. If you drop something in front of them, they don't get annoyed. They just look at you with that expression that says, "It's okay, we'll analyze the floor for damage later." Your childhood here is extremely safe, but also extremely weird. Imagine learning to walk in hallways filled with medical carts and research consoles. Your playground? A sanitized observation deck. Your school field trip? Another room with more machines. If your parents work here, they're probably scientists or medics, and your crib might as well be a backup storage unit for medical pads. Even your toys look like equipment. Instead of stuffed animals, you'd get little educational models shaped like planets, DNA strands, or holoprojectors that teach you about nebulae. Cute? Kind of. Fun? Depends on your personality. One thing that stands out on Polis Massa is how obsessively clean everything is. You know how some kids grow up thinking dirt is normal? Maybe they play outside, roll around in grass, get muddy. On Polis Massa, a tiny stain on your sleeve feels like a crime scene. The cleaning droids would track you down and politely sterilize your entire outfit before you even understand what you did wrong. After living here, visiting a place like Tatooine would feel like you're willingly walking into bacterial warfare. The Polis Massans are also extremely curious. They love archaeology, biology, genetics, anything that helps them understand the life across the galaxy. So growing up with them means you're constantly surrounded by research. You can't even eat breakfast without someone scanning your fruit to check for nutrients. They're not intrusive, just dedicated. Everything is data to them. You trip and fall? Someone logs the height of the stumble. You sneeze? They compare it to every sneeze recorded from 300 species. You lose your first tooth? Congratulations. It goes into a labelled container so they can study growth patterns. Daily life here is routine, heavy. Wake up, check the environmental monitors, grab a sterile meal pack, go to lessons taught by Massans who communicate with gestures and mind voices, and spend afternoons reading datapads or watching small-scale experiments. You might think that sounds boring, but for some kids, it's paradise. There's no chaos, no danger, no sudden disasters. The biggest concern you ever face is whether someone misplaced a datapad, and even then the security droids have already found it before you finish panicking. But let's talk about the part that actually makes this place interesting: lore. Polis Massa is where Padme gave birth to Luke and Leia. It's basically the galaxy's most historically important delivery room. The fact that your home is tied to such a major moment in the saga gives the place this quiet significance. The Massans recorded everything, studied everything, and kept the entire incident so discreet that the Empire barely knew what happened. Growing up here, you'd probably hear more stories about epigenetics than about politics, but every once in a while, someone mentions how the galaxy shifted because of one night on these asteroids. A weird detail about living here is that you hardly see the sky. There's no sky. You're inside a rock most of the time, surrounded by reinforced walls and sealed doors. The outside environment has no air, no wind, no weather. When you finally do get to look at space through a viewport, you just see blackness and distant stars. For a kid, that can be strangely peaceful and strangely isolating at the same time. There's no concept of a sunny day. There's no rain, no sunsets, no clouds. If you asked a Polis Massa child to draw outside, they'd probably sketch a rectangle with dots in it. What Polis Massa does have is technology everywhere. If you love gadgets, this place spoils you. Every room has displays, scanners, analysis stations. You grow up knowing how to interpret medical readings before you know how to climb stairs. Your education includes learning about species anatomy from holoprojections and listening to Massans explain ancient ruins with slow, calm telepathic lessons. You're not treated like a kid running around causing trouble. You're treated like a potential future researcher, whether you want that responsibility or not. Lothal takes this spot because it's one of those planets that looks totally fine from orbit. Green fields, decent weather, wide open plains. But the moment you touch ground during the Imperial Era, everything feels slightly off. It's not a war zone at first glance, but you still feel like someone's watching you from behind a ridge. Growing up here during Imperial rule meant your life revolved around farms, factories, and the constant reminder that the Empire never minds sticking its nose into everything. People tried to keep things normal. Early mornings, tending to crops, small markets, simple meals, but the peace was always thin, like stretching a blanket over a broken window. Even the wildlife kept their distance, probably wondering why these new armoured visitors stood around yelling at moisture evaporators. The Empire didn't move in quietly either. They arrived with loud speeches, polished boots, banners everywhere, and a promise to bring order. Locals didn't buy it, but when a Star Destroyer parks itself in your sky like a giant metal landlord, arguing becomes hobby material instead of an actual plan. Before long, Lothal's open fields were replaced with metal structures, training yards, and fences that didn't really keep anything out. They just reminded you who owned the place. Now kids here grew up with this strange mix of rural chores and military noise. You'd be feeding livestock one minute and hearing a walker clanking down a distant road the next. And the Empire always had a reason to march around. Training exercises, patrols, inspections, demonstrations of presence. They never called it intimidation, but everyone knew what it was. Schools on Lothal didn't escape the Imperial makeover either. History lessons quietly changed. Posters about loyalty went up. And the worst part, those recruitment officers who treated kids like future stormtrooper material instead of, children. At lunch, you'd hear some officer giving a pep talk about opportunity, while half the students stared at him like he was reading the menu upside down. On the economic side, Lothal had a rough shift. The Empire wasn't interested in preserving the planet's charm. They wanted resources, factories, and labour. Suddenly, you had industrial facilities popping up like mushrooms after rain. The factories didn't shut down, even at night. Their lights turned the landscape into a weird mix of farmland and sci-fi scrapyard, like two different worlds mashed together without reading the instructions. Family dinners turned into conversations about what fields got seized next, which neighbours had moved away, and how much tax the Empire decided to add this week. People didn't get angry loudly, they didn't dare, but the frustration simmered under the surface. You could see it in how they talked, how they watched stormtroopers pass, how they hesitated before mentioning anything political. Daily life wasn't completely miserable, just compromised. You worked, you helped your family, you avoided trouble, and you tried not to attract attention. Locals became experts at minding their own business. You didn't talk back to stormtroopers. You didn't ask why a shipment was missing. And you definitely didn't ask why the Empire needed so many TIE fighters parked around like they were running a weekend sale. The big shift came when farmland started shrinking. Once the Empire realised Lothal could handle industrial production, they ramped it up fast. Fields disappeared under metal platforms. Irrigation routes got rerouted to factories. Even the wildlife was confused. Herds didn't recognise their old routes anymore and wandered through Imperial construction sites like lost tourists. Troopers had no idea what to do with them, so they just stood there, waving their arms until the animals got bored and left. Social life changed too. People used to gather in open fields, tell stories, share food, all that peaceful countryside stuff. Under the Empire, gatherings became smaller, quieter, and more indoors, partly because nobody wanted a trooper overhearing something that sounded unpatriotic, and partly because nobody wanted to look at the latest smokestack ruining the view. If you get born on Coruscant, the first thing you learn is that this world isn't a planet. It's an apartment building with 100,000 floors and no elevator that ever stops where you need it. Everything here depends on which level you come from. Same planet, completely different realities. Upper levels, the fancy roof of the galaxy. Let's start from the top, because why not dream a little? If you're born up here, life feels like someone turned on easy mode before you even opened your eyes. These levels sit so high that the sunlight looks like it has premium settings. Clean air, organized streets, buildings that shine like they've been waxed by droids with OCD. It's the kind of place where people actually jog for fun. Your parents probably work in government, banking, science, law, or something with senior in the title. Your childhood includes private tutors, high-speed air taxis, and parks with trees imported from actual forests. You might even forget the rest of the planet exists, unless a news holo mentions the lower districts, and everyone pretends to be sad for a moment before returning to their caf. The Jedi Temple is visible from most high balconies, which is wild. Imagine doing homework with literal space monks in the background. Kids here grow up around diplomats, senators, artists, ambassadors. It's like living inside an airport lounge that never closes. The vibe is calm, organized, a bit snobbish at times, but overall functional. Even the food is clean and portioned like someone designed it. The funniest thing? Upper-level residents swear Coruscant is a peaceful planet. That's because they've never left the rooftop. Slide down a few thousand layers, and now you're in the part where the galaxy actually works. These levels are loud, packed, smog-heavy, and full of people who've mastered the art of minding their own business. This is where you get markets that stretch for kilometers. Neon signs flashing sales nobody trusts, and food stalls where the cooks have been making the same dish for 30 years and will fight you if you ask for less spicy. Childhood here feels busy. There's always noise, speeders racing overhead, vendors shouting about discounts, maintenance droids complaining loudly as if they weren't programmed to obey. You grow up learning shortcuts through alleys, which shops serve real meat and which ones pretend, and the quickest route to avoid the cops when they're checking IDs. School depends on your district. Some mid-level schools are great, others feel like they're one angry student away from a full riot. Kids here learn to be street smart early. You have to move with the crowd, or you'll get swept away. The best part? Culture. You see species from every corner of the galaxy. One friend is a Rhodian, another is a Devaronian, and your neighbor casually smells like engine grease because he repairs ships on level 2000. Mid-level nightlife is something else. Thousands of bars, diners, casinos, dance spots. It's like someone mashed every city on Earth together and then wrapped it in neon. You'd think crime would be awful here, but it's more of a look busy and nobody bothers you kind of place. This layer is the beating heart of Coruscant. Not perfect, not terrible, just alive. Now, drop thousands of floors below sunlight and open the door to the place your upper-level friend pretends doesn't exist. The lower levels are where Coruscant remembers it. Used to be a normal planet before the skyscrapers buried everything. Down here, the lighting never feels natural. It's dim, flickering, recycled from some power grid nobody's mapped in centuries. The air smells like a mix of oil, old metal, and whatever the last ship dumped into the vents. People who live up top complain when the weather is a bit cloudy. Down here, clouds don't exist. You get permanent twilight with a touch of don't wander off alone. But here's the thing, life does exist down here. It's rough, but it's not empty. Families run corner shops in rusty buildings. Kids kick battered metal cans pretending they're pod racers, and old workers sit outside bars telling stories about the time they almost made it to the mid-levels. There's a community vibe. Everyone watches out for each other, because if you don't, nobody else will. Crime is common, but not in a dramatic movie way, more like you turn the corner, see a shady exchange happening, and immediately decide to walk somewhere else. People aren't evil. Their surviving security forces rarely patrol these depths, and even when they do, the locals treat them like rare weather events. The wildlife is the surprise. You'd think nothing lives here, but the tunnels are full of creatures that adapted to eternal darkness. You might see six-legged things darting across old pipes or little glowing bugs that escaped some lab decades ago. They're creepy at first, but eventually they feel like part of the neighborhood. Lore-wise, these levels hide entire forgotten civilizations beneath modern Coruscant. Ancient temples, ruins, and abandoned shrines still exist from the Republic's earliest days. Some date back to before the planet was even unified. Most locals don't explore them, too risky, but urban legends float around about Jedi relics hidden below the lower 2000s. Life in the lower levels teaches you resilience. You fix things instead of replacing them. You learn which doors are safe to knock on. You find joy in small things. A working lights panel, a clean meal, a day without the ceiling debris falling. What makes Coruscant wild is how fast your life changes, depending on altitude. A few kilometers up or down is the difference between attending diplomatic receptions or eating noodles under a broken neon sign. It's a planet-sized social ladder, and where you start usually decides where you stay. Everything flows through this world. Politics, trade, wars, rumors, technology. Even someone born in the lowest districts can tell you stories that a kid from Naboo or Lothal would never believe. You always know you're living in the center of everything, even if everything is happening way above your head. If you had to choose a planet to roll the dice on, Naboo doesn't seem like a bad bet. It's one of those places that looks like it came straight from a travel brochure. Bright lakes, rolling green hills, clean air, shiny domed cities, and architecture that makes you feel like the place has never seen a rushed construction project in its life. Every building looks like someone spent an extra few hours polishing it just for fun. Naboo is the kind of pretty that hides problems underneath. It's like that friend who always posts relaxing photos from vacations but somehow ends up telling you later that their entire trip was a mess. Living here absolutely has its perks, but the peace depends heavily on who's ruling, who's visiting, and whether or not some galactic power decides Naboo looks like a cute place to invade this month. The funny thing about growing up on Naboo is that your childhood starts with a completely wrong impression of the galaxy. You spend your early years thinking most planets have pristine beaches, well-maintained roads, clean drinking water, and teachers who actually enjoy their jobs. You think every city has opera houses instead of power plants and lakes without industrial runoff. You think a queen getting elected every few years is normal. Then you leave the planet for the first time and realize, wow, the galaxy is mostly garbage compared to home. A typical Naboo kid learns early on that nature is a big part of life. Fishing spots everywhere, lakes you can actually swim in, and grass that doesn't stab you like the stuff on harsher planets. And if you live near the countryside, you wake up every morning to scenery that looks like it belongs in a fancy, rich person's screensaver. The downside is that people here take traditions very seriously. Festivals, ceremonies, parades. There's always something happening, and everyone shows up dressed like it's a royal wedding. Now, Naboo isn't just humans lounging in pretty landscapes. Let's not forget the Gungans, the native species living in massive underwater cities. Growing up on Naboo means you at least hear about Ahch-To Gunga, even if you're not allowed anywhere near it, unless you're on an official visit, or you somehow become friends with a kid whose uncle happens to be part of Boss Nass's council. Most kids are fascinated by the whole underwater civilization thing, especially the bubble architecture. It makes every other city look boring in comparison. But here's the interesting part. Naboo's politics are intense. They're polite about it, everything looks calm on the surface, but the society is constantly balancing between tradition, monarchy, and modern democratic processes. Imagine having a queen that's younger than your older cousin, but she's running the entire planet. That's Naboo. It works, but it's definitely unusual. Naboo teenagers grow up knowing more about elections, trade agreements, and diplomatic etiquette than most adults on other planets. Daily life here is shaped by the fact that Naboo absolutely hates war, yet repeatedly gets dragged into it. It's almost ironic. This is a planet famous for peace treaties, art and culture, and somehow they're always involved in the galaxy's biggest problems. When the Trade Federation showed up with that blockade, every kid learned a whole new vocabulary of trade routes, sanctions, and occupation. You know a planet has history trauma when even children understand what diplomatic standoff means. If you're living in Theed, your experience is almost too perfect. Marble everywhere, fountains that never seem to run out, markets filled with fresh food, and guards who actually do their job without harassing people. The city is so well planned that even the back alleys look intentionally designed. You spend your afternoons wandering plazas, eating local sweets, and complaining about schoolwork that takes place in classrooms that look like miniature museums. But head out to the rural side of Naboo and it's a little different. Still peaceful, still beautiful, just slower. Lots of farming communities with traditions. Older than some galaxies, people make pottery, craft instruments, run small shops, and treat their festivals like major galactic events. There's this nice rhythm to life there, almost meditative, but it also makes the political surprises hit harder because rural villages are usually the last to hear the full story. If the Star Wars galaxy had a "you'll be fine, don't worry about it" planet, it would be Chandrila. Compared to the rest of the list, where planets try to roast you, poison you, enslave you, or actively collapse on your head, this one feels like the universe finally decided to give someone a break. It's the closest thing Star Wars has to a polite handshake. You grow up here, and the biggest crisis in your morning is probably running out of breakfast grain, not dodging blaster fire. Chandrila has this gentle, countryside charm that doesn't feel forced. Green hills, clean lakes, quiet villages with neat little paths, and people who can actually sleep at night without worrying that a rancor will kick down their front door. It's a place where the weather cooperates most of the time, and when it doesn't, the worst it throws at you is a mild storm that everyone treats like a weirdly exciting community event. Life here feels balanced. Kids grow up with space to run around, fields to get lost in for fun, and schools that take education seriously but don't crush your soul. Teachers aren't strict in a scary way, they actually explain things without yelling. Imagine that. Everyone learns a bit of everything. Farming, history, politics, basic galactic culture. Because Chandrila has always been involved in the bigger picture without turning into a militaristic nightmare. And that's the thing. Chandrila is peaceful, but it's not naive. It's one of the founding worlds of the New Republic for a reason. People here care about institutions, democracy, and not letting dictators ruin everyone's day. Mon Mothma herself is from here, and you can feel that influence in the culture. Calm, thoughtful, diplomatic. If other planets are loud and unpredictable, Chandrila is the friend who listens first and argues later. You don't get that vibe anywhere else. Walking through a Chandrilan town feels like stepping into a Star Wars postcard. Instead of gritty alleys or polluted skylines, you're surrounded by stone cottages with windmills spinning in the distance. Even the architecture looks like it was designed by people who weren't stressed during construction. Streets are safe, markets are cozy, and no one tries to scam you by selling a broken hyperdrive disguised as antique art. You can actually trust the vendors here, which already makes Chandrila feel like a different galaxy. Food is another peaceful blessing. Instead of questionable diner meals or whatever passes as nutrition on most planets, Chandrila has fresh produce. Real vegetables, not rehydrated mystery cubes. Families eat together, neighbours share meals, and if there's a festival, you know half the celebration revolves around something baked, grilled, or grown locally. Kids here probably think ration bars are a horror story from another world. You're surrounded by nature on Chandrila in a way that feels intentional. Trees aren't shaped like carnivorous arms, the rivers aren't toxic, and you don't need protective goggles just to step outside. It's the kind of place where walking barefoot on the grass won't put you in the hospital. Imagine living on Felucia and hearing this. Chandrilans would sound like they're bragging. But here's what truly sets it apart: stability. The political environment here doesn't flip every 2 years. You don't wake up to find your planet suddenly occupied by some new empire. Chandrila invests heavily in community, so everyone grows up feeling like they belong somewhere. There's a strong sense of responsibility, but not the heavy, guilt-driven kind. More like, let's all be decent because it makes life easier. Jobs on Chandrila are calm too. Farming, administration, teaching, environmental work, ship maintenance, nothing that requires you to fight a monster on your lunch break. Kids grow up seeing adults work jobs that don't send them to the emergency room every other week. That alone would make this planet feel like a paradise compared to the rest. Even nightlife is mellow. You won't find wild Coruscant raves or Nal Hutta slime dens. Chandrila's idea of a fun night is a community gathering, maybe a music performance, maybe a small festival by the riverside with glowing lanterns. Drinks are gentle, sweet to hurt, and definitely not explosive, like the stuff Mandalorians brew. People here enjoy themselves without chaos. probably because they don't have trauma to numb out. Now, that doesn't mean Chandrila is perfect. It's peaceful, yes, but that also means it can feel a bit sheltered. Kids here grow up with little exposure to the galaxy's uglier sides. When they eventually leave the planet, they get culture shock so strong it might knock them over. Imagine going from Chandrila's gentle breeze straight into Tatooine's welcome to hell heat. You'd faint before lunch. Ahch-To is the kind of planet you save for the end of a list like this, because it feels like the galaxy accidentally left a peaceful place untouched. After all the chaos, lava worlds, Sith ruins, swamp mafias, and cities full of stormtroopers yelling at everybody, ending up on Ahch-To is like finally walking into a room where nobody's shouting. Life here is simple. You wake up to ocean wind instead of alarms or blaster fire. Every direction you turn, there's another island, another cliff, another chunk of green surrounded by blue water, stretching so far you forget the rest of the galaxy even exists. There are no empires, huts, politics, no missions, nothing waiting to drag you into somebody else's fight. Your childhood is basically one long beach episode. You climb stone steps, explore caves, chase porgs that steal your snacks, and sit on cliffs, watching waves hit the rocks like it's their full-time job. Even the locals, mostly birds, fish, and those weird caretaker ladies who always look annoyed, eventually get used to you. They don't say much, but you always know when they're judging you for dropping crumbs on the floor again. What makes Ahch-To special is how completely normal everything feels, despite being part of a galaxy full of hyperdrives and laser swords. People here live slowly. They cook simple food, gather water, keep their homes tidy, and don't stress about what's happening on Coruscant or Mandalore, because none of it reaches them anyway. You grow up thinking peace isn't a luxury, it's just the default setting. And yeah, you eventually notice the old Jedi ruins, the stone huts, the library tree, the carvings on the rocks. You learn bits of history just by walking around, like the whole planet is whispering old stories without trying to impress you. But that stuff never overshadows the place itself. If there's one thing that makes this planet the best option on the list, it's the fact that nothing forces you to grow up too fast. No wars, no factories, no smog, no monsters jumping out of bushes every Tuesday. Just water, wind, salt in the air, and a sense that the galaxy finally stops spinning around you for once. Ahch-To doesn't try to change you or teach you anything. It simply lets you breathe. And after 19 planets that tried to cook you, crush you, enslave you, scare you, or draft you into some mess, a place that lets you just exist is pretty much perfect.